So now here you are.
Yep.
Founded Blossom Academy.
Mm.
You're in the US, a founding member of a unicorn. You had NRC Global going, NYU graduates. Why did you decide to come back to Ghana?
You know, every year the stats say that 12 million African youths enter the job market, but only 3 million find formal work. So as I'm thinking about systems change, how do we really create jobs at scale? And how do we create jobs that are relevant to Africa? The founder of the person that designed the toilet seat cover is probably sitting in a private jet right now. So when you go, try and build something, try and find something to solve. So when I got into NYU, I literally had on my dorm wall, get rich in college or graduate regretting. You need to figure out what is it that comes naturally to you, and how do you essentially take that and really turn it into something meaningful for society.
Funding. How have you managed to sustain what you've done over the period, scale it? How have you enticed investors to commit to this cause?
So the final words that my father said to me before he passed away, when I was 10. Over the years, it became my why. Why I decided to help other people, why I decided to put others first. He shared that, you know what, he's going to the hospital, he'll be back, but
Hello community, thanks for tuning in again. So the conversation I'm about to listen to is one with Jeph Acheampong. Jeph is an amazing young man building amazing infrastructure at Blossom Academy. Essentially at the core of what they do is to train young people and then connect them to economic opportunities. And I think it's a very substantial way of dealing with systemic economic, disadvantage, and then empowering people economically. And so it was an interesting conversation. We spoke about the demise of his father, his journey as a young man through NYU, raised by a single mom, going to Harvard, building Blossom, and the future. And I can't wait for you to listen to it. And as the mantra goes, build something. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, it's a pleasure.
The last time we spoke in, was it March?
I don't even remember.
It was March.
Maybe,
and you told me you're out of the country and you're going to be around in July. I was like, oh God, is July ever going to come?
Yeah.
So this conversation happening in July is for me, it's a testament to the fact that the year is really running.
Yep.
Because it felt so far away.
Yeah,
it's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for what you do. And I really look forward to an interesting conversation today.
Looking forward to it. And thanks again for having me. Amazing podcast.
Thank
really.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care of your mother and brothers. What does that mean to you, that statement?
Yes. Those were the final words that my father said to me before he passed away. And I was 10. And I am the firstborn of 3 boys. And this was in our living room. And he shared that, you know what, he's going to the hospital, he'll be back, but while he's gone, I should take care of my mother and my brothers. And for me, over the years, it became my why. Why I decided to help other people, why I decided to put others first, because it's just deeply rooted in me to really help other people as well. And it started from just helping my siblings, helping my mother, make sure that they're okay. And now it just transcends to helping other people through the work that I do.
Interesting. So essentially from 10 till the man you become, raised by a single mother, I believe, 2 other siblings. Was he in Ghana or in the US?
Yes. So raised in Ghana till 13.
Okay.
So we all moved to the US when I was 13. So that's my mother, 2 brothers, myself, and we moved for greener pastures, as most people move for. And fortunately, it happened at a time where things were becoming very difficult. Because when he passed away, we just went through a lot of turmoil, a lot of challenges. But going to the US was a fresh start for us to be able to really live a new life, explore other opportunities.
Yeah. So I gather you went to Forest Hill?
Forest Hills, yep.
Okay, and then you went to NYU,
Yes,
study economics.
exactly.
Why that choice?
Well, in all truth, the goal was not to study economics.
Okay.
Like most African students, you're going to be a doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
I was going the medical path. I was
Yeah.
very sure I was going to be a cardiologist. Saying that from God knows how old I was. But so actually, back at Forest Hills, I was on this track called the Carl Sagan Honors Track. So these are usually students that end up going to the medical
Okay.
field. But NYU actually came by chance. So I remember this very explicitly. One afternoon, I went to the college admissions office. I used to spend a lot of time there. And one of my friends came by the office, who is called Steven. And Steven shared that, he got into this school called NYU early admission. And he was sharing with everyone. Everyone seemed very excited. And I'm like, what is NYU? I've never heard of the school before.
Yeah.
So before he left, he said, you should apply as well. You're smart. And the college counselor overheard the conversation and gave me a voucher. And I literally took one of my college application letters. I took out the name of the school and I put NYU there.
Oh.
Fast forward a few months later, I got in. But being at NYU is what brought in the whole idea of you can actually make an impact through business. You can actually make an impact through economics. It doesn't have to necessarily be through the medical field. So it exposed me to a lot. And seeing people who come from families where their family studied economics, business, I think really helped me actually figure out that this is the pathway I should choose as well.
Talking about NYU, where you started this thing, Anansi Global?
Yep. Did your research. Yeah.
Humanitarian fashion. What
Yeah.
was that about? To explain.
Yeah.
What led to that,
What led to that was a conversation. For me, I truly believe that God speaks through people. And it was just a very simple conversation that I had with a gentleman in the gym right before I entered NYU. So I had on the NYU t-shirt. And he shared with me that, young man, are you, attending the school? I was like, I'm about to start now. And he shared something that really stuck with me. He goes that, just know that the founder of the person that designed the toilet seat cover is probably sitting in a private jet right now. So when you go, try and build something, try and find something to solve. So when I got into NYU, I literally had on my dorm wall, get rich in college or graduate regretting. So very similar to the 50 cents, get rich or die trying. Yeah. And I have always been someone who's loved fashion. I used to design clothes for my friends back in school.
Yeah.
So it's something that came naturally.
By the way.
Thank you.
Did you design that too?
I didn't design actually. So my wife and I have a designer and they work together to actually make me this. So it's actually a graduation present. So thank you.
Nice.
So I would always stare at that. And one day I remember it was around, I think, one of our winter breaks. And I saw this bracelet sitting on my desk. And I got this light bulb moment that I've been doing spoken word poetry on campus.
Okay.
And when I usually do these poems, people will come to me and they'll share a line from the poem that really resonated with them. So I felt, why don't I actually take some of these quotes, put them on a bracelet, and sell them after my performances? It was a very simple idea. But then as I started essentially selling it, I started getting feedback from different people saying that, wait, these bracelets that you're selling, you have this model called the 1-for-1 model. If I buy one, I'll give one to an orphan in a developing country. Are words enough? And so people started challenging me to say, why don't you actually go to these countries and build a mentorship program for them? So we ended up doing mentorship programs in Bangladesh, India, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and Ghana. But the trip back to Ghana is what changed my life. And so it was just started with a bracelet, what's in my hand, and then that actually became Anansi Global, which eventually evolved into Blossom Academy down the line.
Yeah, because now that you're saying it, I was actually jotting it up. It feels like that's the connection.
Yep.
Interesting. I know you did this data consultancy role after NYU.
Yes, at Experian.
Yep. Okay, and from there you helped co-found Isusu.
Yeah, so a founding member.
Of Isusu.
So actually I was doing that while at Experian. So I joined Isusu while I was in school.
Brilliant company.
Thank you.
I met with. Okay, so by the way, my startup is called a Daira. So we basically like a Susu,
Yes.
but then contextualized for the Ghanaian market.
Okay.
But just that we are not only on the data side, but given the nature of our market, we
Yep.
have to also be on the capital side. So
100%.
providing capital to pay their rent and you get the data. Right?
Yep.
So I think I met with Samir and Abby 2 years
Yes.
ago.
Okay.
And this guy called Billy, Nko Billy. I don't know if you know him.
Incobili number.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were considering like investment options on the continent.
Yep.
But I mean, eventually ended up in Nigeria. With rents was anyway. So, Esusu.
Yes.
How did you get involved? Because
Yes.
it's a unicorn now, brilliant
Yeah.
company.
No, absolutely. It's such an amazing success story.
Yeah.
So I think this all goes to the power of just starting with what you have. For me, the way I got on the Isuzu radar was because I started with the rubber bracelets. And at some point I'll be going to class and I'll see people wearing my bracelets that I actually didn't know them or I didn't know how they even bought it. And so when I came back from Ghana after the mentorship program, I actually ran into Samir in our entrepreneurial center. And I ran into him primarily because we were applying for a very similar competition. So Anansi was applying for it and his former company, which focuses on reducing food waste, was applying for that as well. So a friend made an introduction, Crystal, introduced the both of us. So we had been meaning to meet. And so when he actually saw me in the entrepreneurial center, he was like, oh, let's actually grab coffee sometime.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I remember this very explicitly, December 2015, we met at Fresh & Co. By the NYU campus. And he was like, oh, there's this idea where it's a rotational savings platform. People chip in money into a pot and they take turns getting the full pot of money. So that's how it started. And I was like, I know this idea. My mother put me through school with this idea when my father passed away. It just resonated right away.
It's very common in like our African circles.
And not even just Africa, actually. It's in a lot of other continents as well.
Yeah.
In Latin America, they have it there. In Asia, they have it there. I think it just cuts across and has different names in different places. So the idea was that simple, but I realized it was very hard to really get people to pay for it. So when I joined in, it hadn't become a platform for helping renters build credit. It was rather help people actually get access to loans quicker. So as a founding member, my role was pretty much going to, different school business conferences to market it, to build a landing page, to really spread the word. Fast forward, the company got into an accelerator program, it pivoted, and now it's what it is today. Yeah. But such a phenomenal story.
Interesting. Okay. So now here you are.
Yep.
Founded Blossom Academy. You're in the US, a founding member of a unicorn. You had Anansi Global going, NYU graduates. Why did you decide to come back to Ghana, and how did that lead to Blossom Academy, or whichever came first?
Yeah.
Hello, friends. So sorry to interrupt you. I know you're enjoying this conversation, and I'm so sorry about rudely interrupting you. But then it's come to our attention that about 82% of you guys who consume our content have not subscribed. Your subscription goes a long way to help us and encourages us as a team to keep bringing you what we bring you every week. So just do us a little favor. Hit the subscribe button, share, and if possible, comment. Thank you.
So coming to Ghana, actually, I always say that it wasn't I hadn't thought through that, come to Ghana, come build this company, and this is how it's going to, manifest. So rather, I felt almost hunted to actually come. Primarily because when I came to Ghana, I remember reconnecting with one of my childhood friends, and he was sharing with me that he actually had finished school and he could not get a job. He was a bit older than me. And I was very baffled because he was someone that people used to praise growing up. So I'm like, how could he get a job? And it was just because he didn't have access to the right networks. At the same time, the orphans we were working with through Anansi Global, I remember that a lot of them didn't want to pursue higher education, primarily because they realized I don't be able to get jobs afterwards. So I'd literally dream about it. I would just see signs everywhere that you need to come and solve this problem. So while working at Experian, I actually took 2 weeks off, came to Ghana, did some market research. I remember this was actually in airport. I went to one of the buildings and spoke to and visited a lot of doors, asking them, hey, why are you hiring talent? What kind of skill sets are you looking for? And one person actually decided to sit with me and have an extended conversation, who was the HR business partner at IBM. And he shared with me that data science will be the future. And that's what IBM is thinking about as well. And I just felt like the stars aligned because it's used as a data company. I was working at a data company / credit. And I feel like, you know what, it might be time to actually make that leap. But before that, I moved to Kenya to go work as a Princeton in Africa fellow. And I did Kenya primarily because they're a bit advanced when it comes to the tech ecosystem, at least back then. So I thought if I can work with a data company in Kenya, I can understand what the pain points of these companies are. So we designed a curriculum, we can actually address those pain points. But it rather felt like, it was, I say obedience to the will of God. I felt like God called me to say, you know what, go and start this thing. And if I hadn't actually taken that leap, I feel like it would have just kept hunting me for years to come. And I just had to take that leap.
Okay, how old were you at this time? Which year was
25.
this? Which year was this?
I came to Ghana in 2019.
Okay.
I went to Kenya in 2018. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you went to Kenya, worked with a data company.
Yep.
How long were you there for?
So almost a year. So it was about 7 months.
Okay.
It was like 7, 8 months. Yep.
And you came back to Ghana.
So I left the States, so left my job without a plan. And I decided to pilot Blossom Academy from my apartment with 6 people.
Where? In Kenya?
No. I was in the US.
US, okay.
And I found someone at KNUST who was willing to work with me to pilot Blossom Academy for 6 people. We successfully got 5 of them jobs. So that was like the data point that we had. And then I moved to Kenya to go do the Princeton in Africa fellowship. But while in Kenya, I kept applying for opportunities based on that success, that we helped 5 people get jobs. Fast forward, I left the fellowship primarily because we were invited by the UAE government through Expo 2020 to Dubai to come and pitch.
Okay.
And that's what actually led me to leave Kenya, go pitch. We got the grant, then came to set up in Ghana.
Okay, nice. So what are you trying to achieve with Blossom? Like what's the goal here?
So, when it first started, and it's still the case, the whole idea is how do we democratize access to economic opportunities for young people across Africa? And in truth, if I were to tell you that we have a firm blueprint of this is what we're going to do next year, 2 years from now, that would be a lie. I think the reality is that we rather listen to the needs of those that we are serving, and we keep iterating to actually serve those needs as well. But ultimately, what it boils down to is making sure that we are providing economic opportunity for those that we are serving. So you might go through training them to become entrepreneurs if that's what the market is asking for. But data, why we really care about focusing on the data and have really doubled down on that is primarily because it allows us to create new employment markets. Many companies that we actually engage with over the years do not have a data department. The first time they hire a data professional is through Blossom. When an intern goes in there or a professional goes in there and they really help them understand the importance of it, they build an entire unit of data professionals. So for us, helping us create jobs through a very indirect and non-scalable way, but at least it's also helping, boost that ecosystem that is important to use data for your competitive advantage.
Okay, so I want to understand the model on 2 fronts.
Yep.
On the side of the people you're recruiting, that's one. The people you're trying to upskill and connect to economic opportunities. So let's take me, for example. I joined Blossom, right? Walk me through the process of even getting into Blossom. How does the curriculum look like? The schedule look like? Is it like, am I on site? Is it remote? How does that look like?
Absolutely. So very merit-based, because what we essentially, our competitor is nepotism, right? So essentially we need to make sure that people who don't have access to the right networks can still get into the program. And we do it in such a way that there aren't any barriers for allowing them to get into the program, which could be internet connectivity and things of that nature, or not having access to teachers who teach them at home, things like that. So let's say, a use case could be Amma found out about Blossom Academy's programs through Instagram because she saw a flyer. Amma applied for the program, and Amma went through a rigorous recruitment process. So it started off with a critical thinking test, a gamified online course, then interviews. Amma successfully gets into the program. She goes through the program for 3 months. However, she's spending 4 days, 3 days online and 1 day in person.
Okay.
Then we leave one day open where they can work on projects independently. Now, the idea is after the 3 months or 4 months, depending on the course, AMA is guaranteed an internship. That's something that we pride ourselves on,
Okay.
to make sure they're able to get work experience, because we realize that work experience is what gets them into the door. Or work experience is what actually really helps them even thrive when they even get into these organizations. And so once, AMA is done with the internship, either the company says, I'm really happy with how AMA performed, I'm going to retain her, or she doesn't get retained because maybe the company doesn't have the budget, or AMA is not a good fit. But the beauty about us is that now AMA has work experience that allows her to be able to now get into another company.
Leverage.
So we're seeing that within 45 to 60 days, AMA gets a new job somewhere else. Within a year, some of them even get remote jobs without our help as well.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Does AMA pay school fees?
No. So it's fully funded.
Oh.
Yeah. So we work with different foundations. We do a lot of service contracts with development agencies to fully fund it. We do have services where people actually pay to go through the programs, but those are working professionals.
Okay.
But people who are unemployed, fully funded.
And then the partnerships. Okay, so now on that side of the, I call them merchants or the businesses.
Yep.
Do you have a partnership that say Isuzu, right? Blossom has a partnership with Isuzu, and
Yep.
so every year or every 3 months, Isuzu has agreed to admit, say, 3 people from Blossom. Is that how that looks like?
So,
and do they pay any sort of commission or anything to you guys for the service?
Yeah. So it's not that structured where it's like every 3 months we're going to come to Blossom, primarily because more often than not it's usually need-based, and we are really niche and focused on data. So data analytics, data science, AI. What we do see is that, let's say, Isuzu hires 2 people this year. Maybe next year they might come and hire 1 person digital marketing, or maybe 3, depending on their needs. But what we do is that we consistently are reaching out when we have a cohort that just concluded, and let them know that actually we have people who are readily available to work. Are you looking to hire at the moment? So that's how it works. Now, because it's placing people into internships, we actually don't charge the companies. So our goal is to really help people actually get their foot into the door and get work experience.
Okay.
Where companies would pay us is if they're hiring from our alumni community. So we have a robust alumni. Right now, we fully sponsored over 700 people over the years.
Okay.
So a company reaches out to us, usually from the UK, US. Usually we get a lot of those remote opportunities. And so, we want to hire someone from your alumni community. We're willing to pay a commission to hire someone who's a good fit, maybe an AI engineer. And that's how we make additional revenue.
That's exciting. So from helping 5 people in 2018, 2019, and I just mentioned that you've done 700 people. That's exciting, right? But I'm aware you've scaled out of Ghana too.
Yep.
Which other countries are you in?
So we're in Nigeria and Rwanda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So is the plan to be like Pan-African, like to be on every African country? What does that look like?
So it goes back to my point, right? It was never intended to even expand that. I think it was rather the beauty about excellence. What I mean by this is that when we work with a funder and they are really happy with our execution, about how we're able to get people jobs, about how people get retained in these companies, they come to us and say, we want to do a similar program in Nigeria. Are you willing to go there as well? And we're not going to say no. Similar happened with Rwanda as well. So we didn't kind of have a blueprint and say we want to go into this market. It's rather the funder saying that, this is working in Ghana. It should not just work in Ghana alone. Other people should benefit. Then we essentially expand with them.
Okay. I was talking to a friend about Blossom, and I think I was telling him that when I think about what you're doing, Patrick Iwa comes to mind. Fashesi.
Yeah.
But I don't see that's where what the goal is, probably be a university of sorts, train certain quality, churn out certain quality students or graduates, commitment to excellence. Yeah, maybe that's where God will lead you to. You never know.
It all boils down to where God leads us, right? I think at the end of the day, it's more about if it's aiding economic opportunity, that's what really makes our soul sing, right? Ultimately, if you're doing university, but it does not get them jobs afterwards, then it defeats the purpose of why you're doing this work. So I think it all boils down to what direction leads to that opportunity.
Harvard.
Yep.
You said your outfit is a graduation gift.
Yes.
Why did you decide to go back to school?
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry, you finish your question.
No, I'm
Yeah.
done. Why you said go back to school? Why
Yeah.
Harvard? Why you did what? Organization and entrepreneurship?
Yes, so it's a mouthful: leadership, organizations, and entrepreneurship. So pretty much more of like leadership in organizational settings.
Okay.
It's a very customized program, 1 year. And I like the 1 year because it's in and out. So couple of things. I think anyone who knows me very well knows that the plan was not to go back to school, primarily because I just really enjoy building. I enjoy figuring things out, getting my hands, in the weeds. But it happened actually 3 years prior to Harvard. I went to go visit one of I call him my big brother actually. I went to go visit him. He was a student at the Kennedy School, and it was a surprise. It was his birthday, so I was going to give him a birthday gift. And I went to the Harvard campus, and he didn't know I was coming, so I was just waiting around like the Harvard Kennedy School lawn. And for some reason, I just felt this urge to be in that setting again, that academic setting, hearing people debate about, what they studied in school, in class, things of that nature. So funny enough, I guess the mistake and the blessing that I did was I planted that in the head of my girlfriend then, who eventually turned fiancée, then wife. And she would urge me every few months, you need to apply. You need to apply. So literally, Harvard was applied for during our honeymoon.
Under duress.
Yes, it wasn't the plan, but I see why it happened though. It really, I realized that the mindset or the skill sets that we've used to build Blossom to this point is not what we may require to take it to the next level. And being in such an environment exposes you to a lot, whether it's the relationships, whether it's the understanding of how systems work. So just being there really kind of fueled that ambition that this thing can scale. This thing can be more than what you're doing right now. So it was all part of God's bigger plan, but the reality was that it was not my plan to go back to school.
Exciting. I know you're part of the Ghana National Artificial Intelligence Strategy team.
Yep.
How's that going?
It's going. So actually, since I've been out of the country, I've not really been as involved. But in the very early stages, we would meet as a team, and we would just brainstorm what solutions the government should essentially be designing to ensure that we are AI ready. We are part of the AI revolution. And they bring different stakeholders from different backgrounds. So for example, my background is in capacity building, talent development. So a lot of my insights align with AI capacity building. But it's going well actually. And I really do believe that having a document like this could really help us not be behind when it comes to this AI revolution, primarily because we have a plethora of young people who are very intelligent, but unfortunately they don't get access to the opportunity that they deserve to get access to.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the AI revolution, but at the same time, I also wonder what it means for youth employment, because you're seeing companies who are now, leveraging tools to get the work of some software engineers done. I heard Microsoft just, laid off thousands of people recently. And so I also wonder what that means, but I feel like where we can have an advantage is rather start to build our own products, empowering people to build their own AI products, customized to fit the needs of our local market. Maybe that's actually when we can get to a point where we wouldn't be displaced as quickly from the job market.
I see. On your Wikipedia page, right? There's this question I was really excited about asking you. I think now that you've spoken at length, I kind of have an understanding. Economic empowerment, right? I personally believe that, as a continent, we attained some substantial level of political empowerment in the 60s. But then we lag behind so much when it comes to economic empowerment or economic liberation, right? And two of the central, should I say, flag bearers of that is poverty and unemployment. And on your Wikipedia page, you see there's a line that says that you're a huge advocate of systemic approach, like approach to systemic change for poverty, tackling poverty and unemployment, right? And clearly Blossom is doing that. Blossom sort of tackles that. I really want to hear your thinking on like your perspective on the continent. I mean, you're doing work across the continent. You've visited, you have your business have expanded to other parts of the region.
Yep.
You have some perspective on what our economic narrative looks like and how you think we can provide long-term strategy, you know, to like effectively tackle that as a people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I do think when it comes to solving problems on the continent, a lot of people, a lot of builders need to think about it from a social innovation perspective, not necessarily just I'm trying to make profits, but I really do believe that business should be about mitigating poverty, and it can mitigate poverty, right? As long as other stakeholders are also doing their part. So I think about it as there's government, there's civil society, there's business. We can all work together to ensure that, you know, people are actually getting access to the right opportunities, people are growing, the economy is growing, GDP, etc. Now, the challenge that I've seen over the years while being here in Ghana and observing other African markets is the fact that when people are building businesses, I think the focus is on how do we scale quickly as possible? How do we reach people? How do we serve all these different markets? But I also do think that as opposed to thinking, having startup thinking, having systems thinking is really the answer, primarily because you think about how your solution could impact different aspects of, you know, the economy. So for us, when we are actually focusing on data, it's not necessarily about data would really get them jobs, but also realizing that if the local watches seller is able to leverage data to be able to procure the right vegetables, procure the right amount of food on a daily basis to sell, maybe the food wouldn't go to waste. So how do we create that thinking in our ecosystem? Once you start, and it's harder to do, don't get me wrong, because the reality is that a lot of investors praise the whole idea of move quickly, break things. But when you're doing business here, when you're trying to solve problems here, I think it should be a lot about repair. How do you repair things that are already broken as well? And so through our work at Blossom, believe me, we could have moved way quicker than we've moved at the moment. Just train as many people as possible for the sake of training people. But once you employ that strategy, you realize that you're missing critical aspects of what really helps build the economy.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that from the work we are doing, we can also be a platform for other businesses to grow. And what I usually urge a lot of entrepreneurs I speak to is that think about what problem you want to solve in the perspective of as you're building a platform business. How can somebody else build on top of your innovation or your system you've designed to ensure that they are also successful, to ensure that they're able to actually help mitigate poverty? And unfortunately, we don't go that route because it's not the most lucrative right away. We just want to just move very quickly. So that's kind of my thing when it comes to entrepreneurship. Yeah. And whenever I'm investing in something or building something, I'm just focused on how we actually not disrupting, but rather mitigating poverty, but also helping building systems.
The repairing thing is really sticking with me now. Rather than move and break things like the West, you should focus on repairing things in our part of the world. Okay. Okay, funding. Right. I mean, you mentioned that you are funded by DFIs and like these grants from organizations and stuff like that. Because you're in the line of business where, and I don't think it will exactly be favorable to the typical VC. It's an impact based. You're not in a rush to scale too quickly. How have you managed to like sustain what you've done over the period, scale it? How have you enticed investors to commit to this cause? Like, how have you know? Because one critical problem we face as entrepreneurs in this continent is access to capital.
Yep.
Even if you're running there for profit, it's neck breaking.
Yeah.
And for you to run more or less like a heavy impact focused business and still have it running and like attract investors, how have you managed to do that?
Yeah. So, one of the reasons why this path is quite hard is because focusing on just the impact alone could essentially derail, you at some point on the journey, you would probably feel like, you know what, this is not worth it. You would walk away. So I think it's very important to think about what other avenues can you explore while building this. So I shared earlier that we do have a service that we serve, working professionals as well, that we serve corporates. So even when the funding, let's say, is not coming the way we expect, the other, division can also support our operations to make sure that we keep going.
Okay.
We've been very fortunate though, and definitely favor plays a very big role. I also do believe that the excellence that we've been able to show different funders also helps as well. And the beauty about this space is that if you get the work done well, the funder would either come back or recommend you to someone else. So a lot of funding we've gotten has been through recommendations.
Okay.
Not necessarily that we went to go look out for the funding. I remember last time I actually went to go search for funding, in all truth. So if you get that recommendation, you actually apply for it, you put in your best foot forward. And then if you're able to actually execute well, guess what? They're going to tell other people as well.
Okay.
But it's hard, right? And I think that those that are doing focus on impact should think about what other, revenue streams could really help them to the point where it's sustainable without actually relying on that revenue stream. And it makes it harder, 100%. Yep.
Over the course of this conversation, I eventually end up coming to this question anyway, but I think you made it rather easier for me. Is the more or less like the correlation between people who build, business people, and then God, right? Over the course of the conversation, you mentioned favor, the voice of God directing you, where God is going to lead you.
Yeah.
What's the play of God and the divine and spirituality in who you are as a person and as a business person? Because I think recently on Empowerment Worship Center did this.
Yes. Stand in the gap.
Yeah, and then you were really vocal about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the role of God on the journey can definitely not be downplayed. It's not by my mind, my power. That's what I 100% believe, right? What I do believe is that I am a vessel. And by allowing God to move through me, I'm able to really help as many people as possible. And that mentality is so powerful because you realize that if you're allowing God to move through you, then how can you fail? One of my favorite verses is Genesis 1 verses 27. Well, we have from 26 through 27, where they talk about where it's sure that we are created in the image of God. And that verse actually is something I stumbled upon in my teens. When I saw that verse, I was like, how can I fail if I'm created in the image of God? Why can I not pursue, this idea?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be able to do it differently than someone who's tried and it didn't excel? It's because of the mindset. I think it all starts from the mentality as well. So for me, it's the God factor is something that I hold very dear to my heart. And I really believe that, it's really helped us come this far. There are times where, on the journey, when I was younger, you have this pride that you think you're doing alone. And you realize that actually there's something feels empty. That it's not just you. It's there's a force out there. And especially when you are operating in this part of the world, I share with, some of my team members that the work that we are doing, you're helping shape someone's career path. Someone might even say destiny. Someone might use that word. If the person is coming from a background that does not really appreciate that, it's attacking your work, right? So you need to be deeply rooted in the word, understand the word of God, and pray. Because the reality is that you are actually doing this from a good heart, but someone may be coming from a background or family where they are not supposed to even break through. And a lot of people who go through Blossom Academy were never thinking about data analytics when I speak to them. It's the first time they even heard about it. So they go through it, then they end up, earning in USD. I know people earning $3,000 a month working remotely, coming from NSS where they were earning 800 CDs a month. Their lives have changed. So you realize that there's going to be different kinds of attacks that will come your way.
Yeah.
But if you do not have that God factor, you might quit and walk away. And it's usually, something that sometimes have very little to do with you. Yep.
Well, you mentioned the fact that you talk to your team about what the vision is about. It brings me to the question of team management, right? How have what are like the guiding principles for you when it comes to managing your team? There's this ongoing stereotype or narrative that the typical Ghanaian employee is lazy and then like low work ethic. There's things like that, right? And how Ghanaian employees are not really forthcoming with their employers and there's a lot of trouble. How have you managed that?
So I'm going to answer that question in two parts.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues back in school. She's Ghanaian as well, and was pursuing her master's too. And I was sharing with her that have she realized that when you meet Ghanaians outside of Ghana, they tend to be really excellent. But why is it that when you work with Ghanaians in Ghana, they tend to essentially give you some excuses? And not all Ghanaians,
Yes,
I'm not generalizing. But when you meet some guy, you're like, wait, you hear them on a panel, you hear them speaking, it's like they're good. And she shared something that really hit home, that Ghanaians, while in their home country, are often not appreciated. But when they leave their home country, they usually get that appreciation. So maybe someone is paying them their worth, for example. Okay. Someone is really praising them or giving them credit for their work. So they actually show up. They actually go the extra mile. Whereas here, it might not necessarily, it's usually not the case, because I speak to a lot of founders through the work that we do as well. So I do think that plays a very big role. And I think it's why a lot of people usually want to go into entrepreneurship, because in their minds, if I become the boss, then maybe I can appreciate myself, right? So I think that's one part of the spectrum. The other part is I think about employees in three different categories. So I usually call it the active stars, the passive stars, and the visitors. So when I say these three, the visitors are people who are coming to your company, and more often than not, they don't care. They just want to come and get a paycheck. They might even be sleeping on the job. If you don't come to work, they don't care. They don't want to do the work. They just know that they're just there for a paycheck. And I think as an entrepreneur, you need to pray for discernment to be able to discern who's that visitor and really make that very hard decision as to whether they can actually help you build this organization. The active stars and the passive stars. The active stars are those that, dare I say, that you're good. They can even run the company. And sometimes, like, they're the ones who might leave and actually go replicate your idea if you're not careful. They're also the ones who, might come with different demands that they've got an offer somewhere else. So they want to have, higher, because they know their worth. And these are people that, yes, you need to keep them close, but you need to understand that because they know their worth, they could easily leave. Then the passive stars. The passive stars are people who, the reality is that, yes, they know their worth, but they still need some development. And as an entrepreneur, it's important for you to know how to identify people's potential and help shape that potential. Because the passive stars are who I believe could actually really lead the company at some point if you treat them well. They could either go either way, either a visitor or active star. But you need to really show them that they are worthwhile. You show them that, you care about them. You show them that you're willing to grow with them. And growth comes from increase in salary. Growth comes from travel opportunities. Growth comes from exposure, sitting on panels, things of that nature. And I do believe that a lot of people don't take the time to identify who can actually become an active star from that passive pool. And you end up losing them because, you often say, oh, they don't have the potential, but it takes an eye. And I think it comes from discernment as well. So that's how I see, the whole team management landscape.
Interesting. So you mentioned that, you went to Harvard because a young woman will not let you rest.
Yeah.
So you're married. How long have you been married for?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And you came here with her, sure.
Yeah.
And so how has marriage changed the dynamic for you as a person, as an entrepreneur? That variable, what has it done for you? I ask it because I think for myself and my friends and other young men who are taking the journey and for some reasons have, because it feels like it's a decision we must take, right? And there are varied sentiments about it and around marriages. Entrepreneurs as a young man, what is your take? I mean, from 2 years of experience, what's been the change? And also mind you, she's sitting right here, so
it's okay.
Make sure you're not in trouble.
Yeah, no, you're good. Before I answer your question, maybe I can tell you what led me to even get married.
Okay.
I think that might help. Like a lot of young men, you want to hit a certain level of, financial, threshold before you decide to get married. And it was definitely one of those young men, right? And we had dated for some time. But, one day I decided to test God, for God to give me the revelation as to whether it's time to get married or not. Because we were dating for, I think, almost 4 years or so. And it was clear I was leaning in that direction. So what I did was, I remember I was on a Wednesday. I put more money than I could ever afford in an envelope to go put on a church altar and pray to God for an answer. That God should somewhere tell me that it's time to get married or keep building. And I remember this very well, that the idea was to put the money on the altar on the Sunday when I go to church, when they call people for tithes and offerings. But on that Friday, she actually came to the office and dragged me to church. There's something in our church called Power Night.
Okay.
And while we were praying, I felt the prophet touch me, Prophet Gideon Danso. And the first thing he said, and he said other things as well, but one of the first few things he said was, "I see your marriage." And for me, why it was scary was because I had just put money in an envelope that I was going to test God for an answer.
Dick, it's time to test God.
And for me, I think what God was doing then, I think, was that if you test God, God wants to test you back to see if you're really going to put the money on the altar. I did, that following Sunday. So for me, it was very crystal clear that I've gotten the answer that I wanted, and I wanted to do it anyway, but I was scared about the journey. It's a lifelong journey. Now, it's really shaped me, though, in many ways, because, you have this, a lot of young men in general, you have this responsibility, right, from family. But then when you also get married, it's a different level of responsibility. You carry yourself differently because you realize that it's not just about you, but you also have someone that you're representing, and vice versa as well. So I think I had to learn this, and there have been mistakes, don't get me wrong, because sometimes you forget that, actually you're no longer a bachelor, right? And you should not essentially be spending too much time in the coffee shop, right? Maybe you should go home and spend time, with your partner as well. And it comes with discipline as well. So I think for me, it's a responsibility, but it goes back to how Blossom started. God had to tell me, right? And I made that decision.
So how is that variable? I mean, you've highlighted the in parts, but that's fine. That's fine. Outside Blossom, what do you do as a person? What do you generally do?
Yeah. So I actually really love investing in startups.
Okay.
So sad to say that usually in Nigeria, because I have friends from NYU who are back home in Nigeria. So I really enjoy the whole entrepreneurial landscape. I do a lot of advisory, so a lot of consultancy as well. Right now I'm very interested in figuring out the next gap that we can close to really help promote economic opportunity. When I say the next gap, I think about what we are solving as to solving two things: the skills gap and the attitude gap. Skills gap is providing young people with the skills to allow them to be able to enter industry.
Yeah.
The attitude gap is really providing them with the leadership skill sets, understanding that it's not just about having the skills, but it's about how you apply them in the workplace to make sure that you thrive when you're in the working environment. And more often than not, that bridging the attitude gap is the hardest. I think it's probably harder than even providing the skills gap, because you need to help reprogram people's mindsets, people's mentalities, to understand that, you're not entitled to this job, but rather you need to go in there, have humility, and be able to essentially grow. And the last part is the job gap. Every year, the stats say that 12 million African youths enter the job market, but only 3 million find formal work. So that's 9 million gap. And the question that a lot of policymakers, a lot of people have been debating is, that 9 million gap, is it that we don't have enough jobs? So as I'm thinking about systems change, how do we really create jobs at scale? And how do we create jobs that are relevant to Africa? It's not necessarily about building the next tech product and going to raise, $20 million and say that, it's successful. But how do you really figure out what the continent needs? And I think sometimes it's not even just about looking at vocational skills, looking at manufacturing, looking at construction, things of that nature. So now that's where my mind is geared towards of who do we partner with to ensure that we're able to essentially create that ecosystem to really help build the continent together.
Interesting. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you that you are passionate about economic empowerment, systemic change in that regard, not just like a hit and run affair. We really need that on this continent. But that'll bring me my last question. I think we are both passionate about this ideal of economic empowerment on this continent, and you've taken the journey. I admit you're ahead of me in that regard, right? And so I like to get free advice when people come in here. What would you tell me to have as an what's it called, a weapon in my arsenal on this journey as an entrepreneur, as a human being, from the wisdom you've gathered over the years?
So when I was coming back to Ghana from school, I watched this documentary on the flight, and it was about Ralph Lauren. And I shared earlier that I've been interested in fashion. So I was very curious to really understand how he built his empire. But the biggest takeaway from that documentary was the fact that everyone who knew him from childhood, including Calvin Klein, who he grew up with, said Ralph was always dressed very well. And he just seemed to love fashion. And so people were not surprised he went to the fashion industry. So the insight I took from that documentary was choose your heart. I even shared this on my Instagram recently. You need to figure out what is it that comes naturally to you, and how do you essentially take that and really turn it into something meaningful for society. The reality is that, especially with the prevalence of social media, you see people, pursuing certain career paths, and you want to go down that career path, but you don't understand what that person's competitive advantage is. So you want to go down that career path because of the applause, because of the accolades, because you are traveling, sitting on panels. But what happens when that applause fades? And more often than not, it does at some point, right? But if you choose something that, you truly care about, that comes naturally to you, the beauty about it is that even when it's hard, and it's going to be hard, your spirit is still happy, your soul still sings, because you've chosen something that is so meaningful to you, that really is deeply rooted within you, within your calling. And I often say that once you do that, you lean more towards what you're called to do, right? So I'll say choose your heart, and do not, be scared about the reality of failing if you choose your heart, because you learn from that and you still take learnings back to be able to build the next thing that you want to build, even if you fail on that journey.
Thank you, Jeph.
Yeah.
I pray God grants you the grace to execute the mandates or the assignment your dad gave you, taking care of your siblings and your mother, and taking care of other people, and just continuously empower young people with skills and connecting them to economic opportunity. You're really doing the Lord's work in that regard. Then I can only pray that the God you believe in, continues to empower you, and all the best.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. And I don't realize how much you understand the impact of the work that even you're doing through these conversations. It goes a long way. And you never know who might listen to it and really feel the need to act. For my journey, I shared with you earlier, conversations have played a very critical role in really getting me to act. So thank you for just creating this platform to really inspire other people as well.
Thank you.
Of course.
I see. So friends, in Accra and the world beyond, I told you it was going to be an exciting conversation with Jeph. And as the mantra goes, just build something. Thank you.